My daughter's teacher phoned me furious and screaming, yelling, "Your daughter just earned a..." My daughter got an A, a perfect, brilliant A, and her teacher was absolutely furious. Can you believe that? How can an A be a crime? Trust me, the reason behind her rage will absolutely shock you to your core. It all started with a phone call I'll never forget. My daughter Zara, a bright, incredibly dedicated student, had just scored another A in her AP Calculus class. But when Mrs. Holloway, her teacher, called me, she wasn't congratulating Zara. She was livid, her voice practically screaming through the phone. "Your daughter got another A," she shrieked, as if Zara had just committed some heinous crime. I was baffled. "Isn't that good news?" I asked, completely bewildered. "No," she snapped. "No black student has ever scored this high in my 23 years of teaching AP Calculus. She must be getting help." My blood ran cold. The accusation, the sheer audacity of it, hit me like a physical blow. She went on, a torrent of suspicion and prejudice. "My daughter studies 6 hours every night. Someone's feeding her answers. I've been watching her during tests. She finishes too quickly because she knows the material. That's impossible. These concepts are extremely advanced." I tried to interject, to explain Zara's work ethic, but she just steamrolled over me. "I had her solve problems on the board today. She got them right, but she must have memorized the solutions beforehand, or she understands calculus." The way she said "understands calculus" made it sound like an alien concept for Zara. "Mrs. Johnson," she sighed, like I was a naive child, "I know you want to believe your daughter is gifted. But let's be realistic here. I've separated her from other students, checked her calculator, watched her like a hawk. I can't figure out her system yet, but I will." Her system? It was studying. But Mrs. Holloway wouldn't hear it. "I've taught hundreds of students. I know when something's not right. She doesn't even ask questions in class. Everyone needs help with calculus. The white and Asian students ask questions constantly. Your daughter sits there pretending she understands everything. And then, a moment of chilling clarity. Maybe she actually understands." It was a grudging admission immediately followed by, "I'm going to request she take her next test in the principal's office alone. No calculator." Fine, I thought. Let her try. Zara took that test in isolation. No calculator. She aced it. Another A+. Mrs. Holloway called again, her voice tight with suppressed rage. "She memorized the test somehow." "How?" "I don't know, but there's no other explanation. I'm changing her to a different test version next time." "Do what you need to do," I told her, my patience wearing thin. Different test version. Another A+. Another angry call. This time Mrs. Holloway dropped a bombshell. "I'm recommending she be removed from AP Calculus for getting perfect scores for academic dishonesty. I can't prove it yet, but it's disrupting the other students. They're questioning why they can't score as high." My heart pounded. "Maybe," I shot back, "because my daughter's smarter than them." She actually gasped. "Mrs. Johnson, that's not helpful." She started talking about other parents complaining, saying, "If Zara isn't cheating, then I must be giving her special treatment. So, either she's cheating or you're helping her cheat." It was a twisted logic, dripping with racism. "I would never," I said. "But she must be cheating because she's black." I didn't say that out loud, but it hung in the air. "You said no black student has scored this high in 23 years, I reminded her. "That's just a fact." I asked, "What happened to the black students who tried? Did you accuse them of cheating when they did well?" A beat of silence. They didn't do this well. Another beat. But if they had, I need to protect the integrity of my classroom. That's when I knew this was bigger than Zara. I started attending school board meetings, digging for answers. And what I found shook me to my core. Mrs. Holloway had a history. 3 other black students in previous years, Destiny Williams, accused of plagiarism in pre-calc, moved to regular math. Jordan Davis, accused of copying homework, dropped the class. Malik Turner, tested in isolation so many times he developed anxiety, eventually switched schools. I met with their parents. Marina Reed and we compared notes. It was chilling. The exact same phrases. Doesn't ask questions. Finishes too quickly. No black student has ever. Must be getting help. The principal, Mr. Yates, wouldn't listen. Mrs. Holloway is our most experienced math teacher. If she has concerns, they're valid. I wanted to scream. Her only concern is that my daughter's black and good at math. I retorted. That's a serious accusation. So is accusing my daughter of cheating with no evidence. I snapped back. He just shrugged. She's just being thorough. Then came a turning point. Spring semester. The International Math Olympiad qualifier exam. Proctored by external evaluators. Filmed. No accusations possible. Zara registered. Mrs. Holloway found out. She called me immediately. She can't take that exam. Why not? She's not ready. It'll hurt her confidence when she fails. I couldn't believe her nerve. Let her try. I forbid it as her teacher. You can't forbid standardized tests. She blustered. If she fails, it reflects badly on my teaching. That was it. I thought she was cheating. How would her failure reflect on you? Another stunned silence. I just don't think she should take it. Zara took it anyway. She scored in the top 5 for our entire state. The only student from our school to qualify for nationals. The local newspaper wanted to do a story. They interviewed Mrs. Holloway about her star student. And what did she say? I always knew Zara was special. I pushed her hard because I saw her potential. Some teachers might have doubted her, but I never did. The sheer hypocrisy made my stomach churn. The article quoted her extensively, praising her for nurturing Zara's talent, for giving her extra challenges, how proud she was. Other parents, completely unaware, started requesting their kids be transferred to Mrs. Holloway's class. They thought she was some kind of genius whisperer. Then, the district superintendent called her personally to congratulate her. Mentioned she was being considered for Teacher of the Year. That was my moment. I forwarded the superintendent every single email Mrs. Holloway had sent me. Every accusation. Every voicemail where she said Zara must be cheating. Every claim that no black student had ever scored this high. Every insistence my daughter couldn't possibly understand calculus on her own. Within an hour, his office confirmed receipt. His assistant scheduled a meeting for the next morning. I spent that evening printing everything, my hands shaking. Each email felt heavier than the last. Proof of what Zara had endured while I'd been trying to work within the system. Dr. Pearson's expression changed as he read through the emails. His professional interest shifted to visible discomfort. He asked permission to forward everything to the district's compliance officer, explaining this fell under their discrimination investigation protocols. I agreed immediately. The compliance officer, Diane Hewitt, called that afternoon. She scheduled a formal interview and asked me not to discuss details publicly. I understood, even though part of me wanted to shout this from every rooftop. Zara came home saying Mrs. Holloway seemed distracted, nervous. I didn't tell Zara about the investigation yet. I wanted to protect her from disappointment if nothing came of it. Diane interviewed me for 2 hours, meticulously documenting everything. She asked specifically about the other black students Mrs. Holloway had mentioned. I gave her the contact info for the Williams, Davis, and Turner families. Over the next week, Diane contacted each family. Marina called me ecstatic. Someone was finally taking their experiences seriously. Reed broke down crying during his interview, feeling so powerless watching Jordan suffer. And then, something amazing happened. 3 white parents came forward, too. Their children had felt uncomfortable with how Mrs. Holloway spoke about black students. Mrs. Holloway was placed on paid leave. A substitute took over her class. Zara reported that the substitute was encouraging and supportive, treating all students with respect. The contrast highlighted just how abnormal Mrs. Holloway's behavior had been. The newspaper reporter, sensing a deeper story, contacted the district. They released a vague statement about reviewing concerns. Then, an anonymous email arrived from a former colleague, describing similar patterns with black students over the years, patterns previous administrators had dismissed. This person was afraid to come forward publicly, but wanted me to know this had been happening for a long, long time. Diane's investigation expanded, interviewing dozens. A clear pattern emerged. Mrs. Holloway treated Black students with suspicion while praising white and Asian students for the same achievements. Several students described her making comments about who naturally excels at mathematics. While the investigation continued, Zara went to nationals for the Math Olympiad. She performed well, not placing top 10, but the experience of being around other mathematically gifted students who respected her abilities helped heal some of the damage. The school board held a closed session to review preliminary findings. Marina, Reed, and I attended the public comment period. Each of us spoke for 3 minutes, pouring out our children's stories. The board president acknowledged the investigation revealed concerning patterns. Mrs. Holloway's lawyer sent a letter threatening legal action if she was fired, citing academic freedom. But the district's legal team determined the discrimination case was too strong. Zara struggled with anxiety as the school year wound down. Nightmares about cheating. She felt like she had to prove herself constantly. I found her a therapist specializing in helping students of color process experiences with racism in educational settings. Therapy helped Zara articulate feelings she'd been suppressing. She admitted she'd started doubting her own abilities because Mrs. Holloway's accusations were so persistent. Hearing her say this broke my heart and strengthened my resolve to see this through. For weeks in, Diane completed her report. Substantial evidence of discriminatory treatment based on race. She recommended formal disciplinary action. Dr. Pearson met with me again, acknowledging the district's failure. He apologized directly. Mrs. Holloway would face a formal reprimand, mandatory bias training, loss of her AP Calculus assignment, and 2 years probationary status. She wouldn't be fired due to tenure, but her career advancement was effectively over. I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted her gone, but Dr. Pearson assured me any future complaints would result in immediate termination. The Teacher of the Year nomination was withdrawn. A formal letter documenting the discriminatory pattern went into her personnel file, a permanent record. The school board voted to implement new policies, documenting academic integrity concerns, mandatory bias training for all teachers, and a formal process for reporting discrimination. A review committee was established to examine historical data for racial disparities. Marina, Reed, and I met with the superintendent to discuss enforcement. He committed to quarterly public reports. The newspaper ran a follow-up story, interviewing us this time. Several teachers reached out privately, thanking us. They'd witnessed Mrs. Holloway's behavior but hadn't known how to address it. Their validation was important, even if I wished they'd spoken up sooner. Zara finished the year with straight A's, including her A+ in AP Calculus under the substitute. She took the AP exam and scored a perfect 5. Final, irrefutable validation. Mrs. Holloway submitted a brief, hollow apology. It felt like words written by a lawyer, not from genuine remorse. I read it once, then put it in a drawer. I didn't share it with Zara. It would have hurt more than helped. Summer arrived. Zara enrolled in a math program for gifted high schoolers at a university. The first day, I watched her walk in, backpack bouncing. She turned back, waved, smiling wider than I'd seen in months. When I picked her up, she talked nonstop about problems and other students. She made friends with kids who shared her passion. Kids who understood what it felt like to see patterns in numbers and get excited about proofs. The environment celebrated her abilities instead of questioning them. She came home energized. August brought the launch of the district's bias training. All teachers had to complete it. The curriculum included case studies that looked very familiar, though names were changed. I wondered if teachers recognized the patterns from their own schools. Marina called me. Destiny had decided to return to advanced math for her senior year. She felt more confident with the new policies. Marina's voice shook with emotion. A meaningful victory, even if Destiny had lost 2 years. Reed called a few days later. Jordan chose to stay in regular math, focusing on history and literature, where he was thriving. Sometimes healing means letting go. Malik's family chose not to participate beyond the initial interview. They wanted to move forward at his new school. I understood. Zara's senior year began with a new AP calculus teacher, Mr. Williams. He treated her with respect and encouragement. He called on her without suspicion, praised her work without surprise. She was still processing the anxiety, but therapy helped her separate Mrs. Holloway's racism from her own worth. The district's Data Review Committee released its first report. Significant racial disparities in AP enrollment. Black and Latino students underrepresented, even with similar test scores. The data made visible what families like ours had experienced for years. Dr. Pearson invited me to join their Equity Advisory Committee. I accepted. The work of changing systems is ongoing. Mrs. Holloway transferred to teaching regular geometry at a different high school, away from advanced students with regular observations. Some parents at her new school expressed concern. I wondered if close monitoring would be enough. Zara started college applications. She wrote essay after essay about her passion for math, but they felt incomplete. I told her the truth matters. She started over. This time, she wrote about learning to advocate for herself, about studying 6 hours every night, not just to learn calculus, but to prove she deserved to be there. About how being accused of cheating taught her that excellence sometimes requires defending yourself against people who refuse to see your worth. Months later, admissions officers from 3 universities mentioned her essay specifically. Her resilience and self-advocacy impressed them as much as her perfect grades. The following spring, our state's math Olympiad team performed better than expected. Zara volunteered to mentor younger students, creating the supportive environment she wished she'd had. Watching her help a nervous freshman, I saw her transform pain into purpose. 3 months into the new school year, Diane called. 2 complaints about Mrs. Holloway from parents at her new school. Concerns about how she spoke to students of color. A parent reported Mrs. Holloway questioning her son's understanding despite his scores. Another described her expressing surprise that their daughter could explain geometric proof so clearly. Because the pattern was on her record, these complaints triggered an immediate investigation. This time, the district couldn't dismiss it. Our advocacy had created accountability that protected other families. The thick envelope from Zara's top choice university arrived on a Friday in December. She opened it at the kitchen table, hands shaking. Acceptance letter. Full scholarship. It specifically mentioned her excellence in mathematics and Olympiad performance. She read it twice, then looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. Happy tears. Relief tears. Validation tears. She'd worked so hard. The acceptance proved what I'd always known, but what Mrs. Holloway tried to deny. Zara belonged in advanced mathematics. Her abilities were real. I framed the letter. It went on our living room wall. A physical reminder that Zara's abilities were never in question, despite Mrs. Holloway's attempts to undermine her. Every time I walked past it, I felt grateful we'd fought back. The school board recognized Zara at their January meeting. After, 3 board members approached me privately. Apologies. They admitted they'd heard rumors about Mrs. Holloway, but hadn't pushed for an investigation. Our advocacy changed how the board thinks, one said. Destiny received college acceptances, too. Marina called me, crying happy tears. Destiny had rebuilt her confidence. We celebrated over coffee, grateful our daughters were moving forward. The district's new academic integrity documentation policy released its first annual report. Data showed concerns were raised more equally across racial groups now. Before, Black and Latino students received academic dishonesty referrals at 3 times the rate of white and Asian students. After, the rates became nearly equal. The policy was working. Mrs. Holloway submitted her resignation, citing personal reasons. She left teaching entirely. Some might say we drove a dedicated teacher out, but I knew we held an educator accountable for harming students over decades. It felt like incomplete justice, but more accountability than most discriminatory teachers ever face. The high school posted job openings for 2 new math teachers. For the first time, parent representatives were on the hiring committee. I served. We asked every candidate about supporting students of color, about culturally responsive teaching, about challenging biases. We hired two outstanding candidates. Neither had Mrs. Holloway's experience, but they had something more important. They believed all students could excel. Registration for Zara's senior year AP Calculus class showed something I'd never seen before. 12 Black students enrolled. The previous year, Zara had been one of 3. Families who'd kept their kids out of advanced math were willing to try again. They felt safer. Seeing those enrollment numbers felt like watching something shift. Zara met some of them at orientation. She came home talking about how different it felt to not be one of only a few in the room. It made her realize how isolated she'd felt. The district invited me to speak at a parent meeting about advocacy. I almost said no, but Marina convinced me. I stood in front of about 50 parents, with printed copies of the timeline I'd created tracking Mrs. Holloway's accusations. I told them, document everything, save every email, take notes, record what's said, build a coalition. Administrators dismiss individual concerns, but struggle to ignore multiple families telling the same story. Be persistent. The system counts on parents giving up. Refusing to give up is the most powerful thing you can do. After, parents lined up to talk. Their stories made it clear Mrs. Holloway was just one example of a much bigger problem. Same patterns, different teachers, different schools, different subjects. We exchanged contact info. I drove home, understanding that the fight with Mrs. Holloway had been one battle in a war that wouldn't end anytime soon. Graduation day arrived. Zara, valedictorian, with a perfect 4.0 GPA. She gave the graduation speech. She talked about perseverance, about proving yourself through excellence, about not letting other people's limited expectations define you. She never said Mrs. Holloway's name, but everyone who knew the story understood. She talked about the importance of having people who believe in you, and she thanked me by name. Her voice was strong and clear. The audience stood and applauded for almost a minute. I cried, thinking about everything she'd survived. After the ceremony, her other teachers congratulated her. Her chemistry teacher hugged her. Her English teacher said her college was lucky. Her new calculus teacher said Zara had set a standard of excellence. The math department chair pulled Zara aside and apologized for not recognizing Mrs. Holloway's pattern sooner. These conversations helped balance out some of the damage from the teacher who'd spent a year trying to tear Zara down. Marina, Reed, and I sat together. We talked about how different things might have been if we'd given up. We'd protected future students. We'd created accountability where none existed. We'd proven that parents working together could force institutions to respond to discrimination they'd rather ignore. The summer before college, Zara became a teaching assistant in a math program for middle school students of color. She helped them see themselves as mathematicians. One evening, she told me that helping younger students felt like taking something painful and transforming it into something with purpose. She could be the encouraging voice she'd needed. In August, I got a social media message from Malik Turner's mother. Malik was thriving at his new school, majoring in computer science. She thanked me for pursuing accountability. Our advocacy had validated their decision to remove Malik from that toxic situation. It had given them closure. The district's Equity Advisory Committee met monthly. We drafted a proposal for identifying gifted students using multiple measures, not just teacher recommendations. The school board voted to implement it. It wouldn't help Zara, but it would protect younger students. Zara packed boxes for college. I sat on her bed. I asked what she'd learned from everything with Holloway. She said doing excellent work was the best way to answer people who doubted her. But she also learned she shouldn't have to work twice as hard to be seen as half as good because of her skin color. Proving herself got exhausting. Future students shouldn't have to go through what she went through. Her voice was steady, but I saw how much the year had cost her. I told her she was right. She picked up a calculus textbook. She said she wanted to come back during college breaks and mentor high school students, especially kids who looked like her, to create the supportive environment she wished had existed from the start. 6 days before move-in, a handwritten letter arrived from the new AP calculus teacher. He thanked Zara for her leadership, her willingness to help others. He wrote that Zara's presence had raised the level of discussion. Her combination of skill and generosity represented the best of what education could be. Zara read it twice, then put it in her college folder. On move-in day, the dorm parking lot was overflowing. We carried boxes. Zara's roommate arrived, also studying mathematics. Within minutes, they were debating theorems. Watching Zara, excited and confident, surrounded by people who celebrated her abilities, I felt grateful. Mrs. Holloway's attempts to crush her spirit had failed. 3 days into the semester, a text from Zara. She'd just finished her first college calculus class. The professor was brilliant and encouraging, treating every student like a capable mathematician. He asked challenging questions, seemed genuinely excited. Her final text said, "Learning was supposed to feel like this." And I knew that, despite the painful detour with Mrs. Holloway, Zara had arrived exactly where she belonged, ready to excel without anyone questioning whether she deserved to be there. What a journey, right? It was a fight we never expected, but one we absolutely had to win. Have you ever faced something like this, where you had to push back against injustice for your child or yourself? What would you have done in my place? Tell me what you think. I really want to know in the comments below.